Maarteen. I kind of think of myself as a vocalist predominantly in music, but I also play instruments, and I also do visual art. I came from like a punk background, and then started working in electronic music, different styles, and it kind of evolved into, you know, kind of goth, dark wavy stuff, which is really cool and a great way to be expressive. But I've always been doing art. I actually grew up with two artist parents, and so always been doing art, always been drawing, always been creating everything. And so I didn't go to art school or anything like that, so I always just felt my way through how I wanted things to look. So yeah, I don't really have a style to call it, but I do drawing and mixed media. I really like working large scale too. So I am very much in the camp of it's like completely essential for me. It's actually like difficult for me to do other things. Like I have to especially like having a family, I have to like balance like, you know, taking care of my family and doing chores and I don't know, brushing my teeth. Honestly, like I think I become very, very driven whenever I get into work, whatever it is, whether it's music or art. I can become like obsessed with it, and it's a mixture of like obsession and fascination and curiosity and pleasure, and all of those things together are really difficult to like balance with other things because they're just like intoxicating. And so it's like an intoxication that to be within that space, but then when I haven't had any of it, then I feel ill. Like I will literally have physical symptoms of like not wanting to get out of bed, feeling very like low vitality, basically. So yeah, it's absolutely essential for me. I think very early in my life, I based a lot of my identity around that. Like to me, to be alive is to be creating, is to be making art. And if you're not doing that, then what are you doing? Like it, honestly, I struggle to make sense and to have like grace and generosity for people who don't see it as that important. Like there was a time in my life where I would have probably written people like that off and been like, what, you don't do art, like what's wrong with you? But like I've definitely gotten, you know, past that and recognized that it takes all types. But I do tend toward that kind of an understanding of it, that it's like an integral and imperative part of existing on the earth. So yeah, there's been probably a few shifts in my life of where I really like leaned into the work. One of them was probably back in my like mid-20s, around like 25, where I decided like I am going to have some success as a musician. I'm going to practice the guitar every day. I'm going to work on my vocals. I'm going to get a vocal teacher. I'm going to book shows. I'm going to commit to this. And I did, and it went really well. Did some tours, eventually started recording electronic music. And then the second shift, I think, was actually just this past year when my dad died. And it was, you know, as you can imagine, like you just realize a lot of things about your own mortality and everyone's mortality. And I think for me, I just started saying, well, all this stuff I've been thinking about and wanting to do, like I'm just gonna start putting myself out there and see how it goes. And so that's actually like part of how I came to submit for your this show, is to, you know, I was just like, well, I'm just gonna throw some stuff up there. I mean, this stuff's not ready to go in an exhibition space, but I'll make it ready if I need to. And you know, I've gone through periods in my life where I felt like I couldn't create because I felt like no one was seeing me. All artists struggle with that, right? Because we walk this line between expressing for ourselves and then wanting to be seen, and that's a human line, but it's very much an artist's line, and that can be such a difficult thing to shake, because then even if someone does see it, then you start to like question the value of that, and you're like, oh, am I just doing this so people can see it? I mean, it can be just such a mind spiral. I mean, and it's so funny because like even now while I'm in this process of kind of trying to prep my work for this exhibition and put it into frames and make sure it has foam core on the back and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like taking it to people, and I'm like embarrassed at first. I'm like, this is probably way messier than like any other shit that you deal with, you know? And it's funny because you have to ask yourself like, why do I care? Why am I comparing myself? Like, it's purely difficult. Like the difficulty of it though is what is interesting to me. And so I keep coming back to it and pushing myself to go through it. And I think it's a cool space to dwell. But I would say actually this work, the art, the mixed media, the charcoal, the drawings, that work in particular has always been for me a space where I try very intentionally to not worry about what people think. And I try, or even being seen, I try to not be precious about it. I try to just let it be messy, let it have my kids' fucking footprints on it, like just whatever it is, let it have a ripped edge. But we're very used to like seeing like very intentional art and art that has a lot of skill and has coming from this place of like, you know, I've painted a person on this background and it has this meaning and all of that kind of stuff. And while that I love, that's some of my favorite work, of course, it's also like, what happens if you just don't do that? Yeah, I don't really actually have ideas. I mean, sometimes I'll be like, I want to start with a circle in the middle. So like, but they're usually as simple as that. Or I'll be like, I really want to use this new piece of charcoal that's like really fat and thick and has this crazy line, and I'm going to put it right in the middle. And that'll be like the starting point for me. What I love about that is I tend to get like a lot of shapes and lines and tones that look like really organic. And so then I start thinking about like the insides of bodies and the cells of plants. And then I start thinking a lot, like my mind kind of does this a lot when I'm working at like zooming very, very, very in. And I mean, you can even see like I go like super tiny. Like sometimes I'm like just outlining like a single piece of charcoal with a pencil. And like, that's what I'm doing because I've gotten so micro that I'm like thinking about like this on a cellular level, like, oh, how would this little piece have this little connection here? But then I'll zoom out from that and be like, oh, is this a body? Is this the inside of a body? And like, what kind of a body is this? And while I also like fully believe in like intentionality and living your life with intentionality, I also think sometimes we have to let go and fly by the seat of our pants, or like just kind of see like what happens, or just even observe what is happening around us and like respond to that and let go of the control. And so it's a constant balancing act of like controlling and not controlling in your life. Like one of the things that my dad used to tell me, one of the important pieces of advice he gave me as an artist, was that an artist always knows when something is done, when something is finished. And I like kind of don't really actually know what that means, but I do think about that a lot. And so sometimes I'll work something really hard like this and I'll kind of get it to this point where I'm like, I don't know if this is actually done, but what I'm going to do is start something new. And there's another place to like send that energy. And so then I can come back to this one and more easily decide if I think it's done. And so that is also oftentimes like that alone is just the impetus for starting a new one. Is it's like, oh, I just need to let this other one go, so I'm gonna start a new one. Maybe it's like balance is what I'm looking for. Like, does it feel like there's not some piece of it that is missing? So one in particular, actually one of the pieces I'm showing at the NittyGritty exhibition is called Mother. And so I'm a mother. I have a 7-year-old. I did that piece probably when he was about like between 2 and 3. And that one thing that does happen with these pieces too is that I don't start with the intention of there being any kind of like noticeable shape in it, but that one I at some point started seeing like this mother holding a baby type image in it, which was kind of startling for me. It was like, whoa, did I draw that unintentionally, or am I just seeing it? I think that piece, looking at it, and the thing about it too is that it kind of turned it out looking like really a little bit eerie, like it's like the woman's face kind of like looks like a cyclops type thing, and then the baby has like almost looks like it has like could be like a mutant with multiple like appendages or something. And I don't think everyone sees that when they look at it, but that's what I see when I look at it. And I think that experience of seeing myself create something like that like really taught me and made me face in a very visceral way, like, wow, I think before then I had not been as clearly facing my mixed feelings about motherhood, about how sometimes I don't like it, and but I also love it, and sometimes I feel like I'm a terrible toxic mother, and sometimes I feel like I'm a great mother. And so I think that those had been pretty subconscious before that point. And so, but that seeing it in that way really helped me look at those with more clarity and kind of explore the feelings too. So keep creating, like quantity over quality, no matter where it is. Like, just don't think anything's so precious that you get stopped, because getting stopped is where you die. And it can be really difficult to get out of that space of having stopped and feeling blocked. And so I think just keeping those lines open and just continuing to create is key. And then I would say the other thing is, and I think they go hand in hand, is just not thinking too much about how what you're doing is going to be viewed, or how people are going to perceive it, or whether you're good enough or whether it's good enough, and just trying to separate it from like I just talked about art being an identity, but what I want to say is separating it from your identity, because I think a lot of times we have these works that we've done, and for us any comment on them is like a comment on ourself, on who we are, and it's a judgment of that. And I think when we get into that world of judging ourselves, that's when we start dealing in shame and other really like difficult emotional experiences. And so I think if you can say, like, if you can make peace in your heart and say like, yeah, this is a thing I made, but like, tell me what you think, but like, that's not speaking to who you are, or what how your humanity is expressed, or anything like that. It's just like what happened to turn out on a page, and then someone has a response to it, and just accept that response as something distinct from you, I guess. I think that's really key. Those would be the two pieces of advice.